Welcome to the Rockin Rich Lynch on the Radio Show. I'm your host, Rockin Rich Lynch, inviting you to join me as we discover great new music by bands and artists from around the world. With interviews, music news and reviews, great prizes, and a whole lot more. Visit us online today at soundpress.net for great music promotion and publicity. Hi, this is Rockin Rich Lynch, and you're listening to the very best of Rockin Rich Lynch on the radio. We recently moved our operations from the New York, New Jersey market to Nashville, Tennessee, and we are now looking for a production and broadcast partner in the region to take the radio show to new heights. If you're a band, musician, solo act, or represent a musical project in any genre, please visit soundpress.net and our new site, musiccitynashville.net, to learn how we can help get your message to the world. Now, please enjoy this great interview from our archives. And hello, everybody. We are back today, and it is my honor and my pleasure to be talking to the incomparable and the consummate rock professional, Tommy Shaw from the band Styx. Tommy, welcome to the Quebec Music Magazine.
Thanks, Richard. Nice to be here. And
I mean that when I say that, because my wife and I were watching the latest DVD, the new DVD from Styx, just out in November 2006.
Yep.
2000
It was a 2006 year.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
It really was.
You guys, well, I wanted to also say that, since your return to the band, you've done a great job keeping the band and the brand alive, because, Styx is one of the greatest rock brands out there.
We have had a long and illustrious and career, and to our credit, it's still moving along, and actually we're playing better than ever, and we got over that hump of wondering how long it would last. I think it'll last until we say it isn't there anymore. I think it's our fans keep coming. I think we'll ride this thing to our graves.
Well, that's a good thing, though, because
it is a good thing. It's the best of things for us, because we have found that it's something that we'll be able to carve away at for the rest of our lives and never get it exactly right, but come really, really close.
Yeah, well, you came really close on this DVD, and that's why, I said the consummate professional thing, because the amazing thing, the new DVD from Styx is one with everything, and the really cool thing about it is you guys recorded this with a youth orchestra called the Contemporary Youth Orchestra of Cleveland. The concert was in Cleveland, and, the way you guys can get there in a situation, knowing you're being recorded, knowing you're having all this additional stuff, and just the way that you all pulled off the songs, flawlessly, that's very inspiring. But it's all, it's impressive too.
Well, when you think about these kids, the chorus age ranges were from age 5 through 18. The orchestra was all teenagers, the ages from 13 to 18, and these, they work all year long towards their final concert at the end of the year. It's the last thing that they do. And normally they've had, they're a contemporary youth orchestra, which means they only play contemporary composers. They play living composers' music. They don't play Bach, Beethoven, or any of that. And so they focus on living composers, and they choose one every year. They ask them to perform with them. And normally it's a singer, like Graham Nash has done it with them, or Ray Manzarek did with them, John Anderson, Pat Benatar, and Neil have done it with them. And what they typically would do was play acoustically and become a member of the orchestra. When they asked us, it was like, well, we all want to do it. And so we just kept proposing things, and Liza Grossman, the conductor, was like, yes, we can do that. Yeah, that's a great idea, yes. She was so enthusiastic about what we were suggesting, and she came up with her, she just helped it along the whole way. There was never a day where she was like, yeah, I think we might have bitten off more than we can chew here. They just kept taking big bites and saying, yes, we can chew this. And so we were looking for early signs of this thing being a bad idea, so we didn't really waste their year and set them up for something that wasn't possible. And quite the contrary, that was very possible, and they stepped up to the plate every single time. right up into the night we had the show, and then the rest is history. So it came off so much better than I think we would have ever dreamed it being. Considering the fact that we just kept throwing new elements in, like instead of doing it in front of their small, their 1,100 seat orchestra hall, we moved it to Blossom. So it was the opening night of the amphitheater season there, and then we bring in HD net to shoot the whole thing in high definition, and we recorded the thing 96 tracks of digital audio, and it was amazing. So
you're adding layer upon layer of bureaucracy, but you guys are pro enough to pull something like that off. I guess there's a lot to consider when you're putting something like that together.
There is, and a lot of people who when you see people credit the crews and the Academy Awards and the Grammys, and whenever they're thanking the crew, there's a reason behind that, because without the crew, you're just sort of a front man standing around going, why isn't anything working?
Yeah, well, look, let me just remind everybody, we are talking to the great Tommy Shaw, legendary of the band Styx, and let me give out the websites. TommyShaw.com is where you can go to Tommy's solo page, and StyxWorld.com is the band site where you can find out information about the new CD, the new DVD, One with Everything, and so
it's
much.
Also a CD too.
So there is.
There's a companion CD. So if you just want to listen to it in your car, but the DVD is a 5.1 mix, and it's pretty amazing.
Well, let me ask you two questions related to this project, because there's so much I could talk to you about today, Tommy. I don't think we're going to get to half of it, but first off is you talked about how you might be not rejuvenated, but you gotten over the hump, and now you know where you're going to be taking Styx for the rest of your life. The youthful, you all on the interview section of the DVD talked about how appreciating the youthful exuberance that you got from the orchestra. You're going to be able to take that spirit and carry that with you through the upcoming year, you think?
We're still buzzing from it. We just played a weekend of shows in Las Vegas at this new theater there, and the band is still on fire, and we've always been driven to do our best, and since 1999, since we got the band back together, there's just been this. It's like the fire got relit, and it's all about making it as good as we can every night, and we have a great time out there doing it. So it used to be a little harder trying to get the whole thing going all in one direction, and with the original cast of Styx, we obviously did really well. Over the years, we created a lot of great music, but it was hard to keep it together. By the time we would finish maybe 40 shows or something like that, we would have to take a break, because it was just getting to we just couldn't come to terms as easily as we do these days. And as I say that, a lot of great things come from adversity.
Yeah.
But as you get a little bit older, you try and have a little less adversity like that, and each person wants to try and be happy. And I think that everyone has achieved that now, so. Well,
it's the maturing process, and
it is, and it's a shame that you can't always have the original cast, but we do have 3 of the 4 living members of the original, the records from the 70s and 80s, and so the people who've come along over the years have been amazing additions to the band. Lawrence Gowan, Todd Zuckerman, and most recently, 4 years ago, Ricky Phillips on bass guitar.
Yeah, man.
6-string.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that a little bit later, but we can cover that now. I personally feel that, like, with the release of this DVD, I finally accepted Lawrence in the band. I don't know. It seems like his role has been expanded, and not that I'm like one of those guys that's taking sides or anything, but when you first saw Styx with Lawrence years ago on TV, it almost seemed like he sounds a lot like Dennis. He kind of looks like him, so that might rub some fans the wrong way. But I think he really he just really found a place into my heart right now. Let me just ask you one other thing. Now, you said about the process of creating the concert, and you said you didn't want to use up or waste their year. How long did it actually? How long was the process to get that together? How much rehearsal did you have that band? And there are 2 new Styx songs on this DVD and CD. where you mentioned on the DVD how just working with the whole cast and the whole orchestra had really inspired you guys. So how long did you guys actually have interaction with those people? How much rehearsal was there, that sort of thing?
Well, it all started out with just discussions and logistics and trying to feel each other out on what we would do, how we would do it. You know, you had to come up with a song list. Once we embarked on it, then it became somewhat technical, just figuring out the hows and wheres and whens and whats. And we had to, once we got the song list going, then we had to find arrangers who could do the arrangements. And you know, it was a lot of getting to know you and getting to build up some trust between Liza and us, which happened very quickly, but we still had to go through that process. And so we'd start getting little MP3s of little MIDI, very kind of, you know, very basic keyboard sounding arrangements for this, you know, 115-member orchestra, and then choral arrangements that were done on keyboards and things like that. So they were very, very just basic sounding things that would come in, and you listen to them and go, that sounds good, or I don't like this part, that sort of thing. And this started about a year ago. So we had about 6 months between the first phone call and the night of the concert. So, and it gradually came together, song by song, arrangement by arrangement. And in the last 2 months, they began to rehearse after school with all the arrangements, and one by one they would learn them, go over them a few times, and then about 5 weeks before the show, we would take turns. One or two of us would go in and rehearse with the orchestra in Cleveland. And at the end, we all went in about 5 days before the concert and sat down in their small rehearsal hall and went over everything. Then we had 2 nights rehearsal at Blossom, and then that was the show. So it slowly got bigger and bigger and bigger. The night that we had the dress rehearsal and camera blocking, that's when it was like, oh my God, here it is. Everybody, you know, everyone has shown up now. We've found a way to squeeze all these people onto this massive stage.
No turning back at that point.
The cameras are here, and it's now that, well, that was when it got very real. Then it was like, how are we going to mic this thing? You know, we wound up having to encase Todd Zuckerman's kit in plexiglass, because that was we moved our speaker cabinets off the stage so they weren't leaking into the violin, because the violin's a very dynamic instrument, and they don't have amplification, so they're not blasting away anywhere. It's all acoustic. So right up until to the very end, they were changing microphones and experimenting with this or that and moving things around and having basically it was audibles right up to the very end.
Great. Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned Todd. Todd's a great drummer, too. Yeah, I was just watching the Quake cams. That was a pretty interesting piece of the extras on the DVD. And, I just mentioned, the whole guys before, the new band. I mean, this DVD really made me embrace, the whole new 5-piece that you guys have going on. But we're running out of time in the first half here, Tommy. I just wanted to work backwards a little bit. So we are talking with Tommy Shaw of Styx. TommyShaw.com, StyxWorld.com is the websites. A couple songs on this record and DVD came from the covers DVD or CD that the band put out last year called Big Bang Theory. Great job with that. I like the cover of Can't Find My Way Home. We got to see Steve Winwood a couple of months ago here. Really like that. How have fans responded to that record, Tommy?
Huge. That was another way for Styx to be a part of everybody's lives, to be playing this music and reinterpreting it, and as Lawrence says, Styxifying it. And it was a lot of great music to choose from. If we go down the list of that record, it's just one song after another that we all were able to get behind. Like we did, it's not on this symphony show, but we did. Jay White did "Manic Depression" by Jimi Hendrix on the record, which was a lot of fun, and I got to sing "One Way Out" by the Allman Brothers, which took me back to being in high school and playing in bars and figuring out how to play that song with my buddies.
Yeah,
but we did Can't Find My Way Home with the orchestra, and we did I Am the Walrus, which was something that because Lawrence had been over to that studio, Tittenham, I think that's not the right word.
What, Abbey Road, you mean?
The John Lennon's house, basically, where he did the song Imagine. He played on the white piano.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Ringo bought that house and had a studio in it, and Lawrence went over and recorded an album in that studio. And every chance he got, he would go out and sit at that white piano and figure out John Lennon songs. And he learned how to play I Am the Walrus on that piano. And so he showed it to us in soundcheck a couple of times, and we learned that song to go play at Eric Clapton's Crossroads Guitar Festival, because we didn't want to. We just played Dallas, and we didn't want to go back and play the same show in front of the same people. So we learned. We just played a bunch of covers and blues songs, and even though that wasn't a blues song, it was a Beatles song that had never been performed or recorded live, and so that was the genesis of us playing that song and putting it on the record. And it's great to hear a live version of it like that. Yeah,
it turned out to be the opener on Big Bang Theory. What about your rendition of Blue Collar Man 2120? I mean, I really like it. It's kind of a different take. It's kind of an older approach, more mellow in a way, still very urgent. But what's the 2120 aspect to it?
Well, James Young lives in Chicago, and he had driven by 2120, which was Chet's Records had their studios there for years, and the Rolling Stones recorded there years ago, and Chuck Berry used to record there, Muddy Waters, and Willie Dixon. It was where he produced a lot of records there. Willie Dixon was the original African American record executive, and although he wasn't really called that at the time, that was the job that he had. And it's no longer Chet's Studios, but it's his wife, Willie Dixon's wife, Marie, has made it into the Willie Dixon's Blues Heaven Museum, and they have a charity there. So, but JY went there one day, just pulled in, and just to see if there's any interest, any connection, and any association with Styx, and he and Marie Dixon hit it off really big. So we decided to go in there and be, the first band to record in there in 22 years or something like that. So we backed our truck in and dumped all our recording gear, and in the process, one thing led to another. Johnny Johnson, Chuck Berry's piano player and silent partner in a lot of his music, came up and recorded with us. Coco Taylor came over and recorded with us. And so this Blue Collar Man thing was something that we had played around with that arrangement at acoustic shows, performances before. But Coco showed up right about the time we were doing that, and Johnny was playing piano, and so it's a very emotional. If you can imagine being there and these legendary figures coming in around you and joining in, if you listen on the Big Bang Theory CD at the end of Blue Collar Man, there's applause.
Yeah, it's like a moment of exaltation.
That was everybody in the control room. They couldn't control themselves.
Yeah,
it was the lack of control room, and because it was Coco was so sweet. She just had a bout of she hadn't been feeling good, and everyone wasn't sure she was up to it, and she showed up and she had to do that performance sitting down because she still didn't quite have all her strength back yet, but she does now. But at that time she'd been in bed for a while, and we weren't sure that she'd want to perform, but she was like, "Give me that microphone."
All right. Well, Tommy, that's great. I mean, we've been listening to that CD all summer long as well, and Big Bang Theory, really like the songs on that. We got about a minute left in this first half, Tommy. We want to roll back the title track from the DVD, One With Everything, comes from the band's last studio album, Cyclorama. I thought that had some of your strongest songs ever. Maybe you were doing some writing with Glenn on that album. The vocal harmonies were pretty cool. Were you disappointed in the how the record did commercially?
Well, I think if you ask that question of anyone today, they would say yes. Anyone who was around in the days before MP3s and that sort of thing. Everyone, I think, is, even though they should be getting used to it by now, the record sales are just disappointing all the way around. So, I got over that a few years ago because we just continue to make records anyway.
Hey, let me ask you a question since you bring that up. I mean, since there are the days of iTunes and there are, a contingent of fans out there who, love you, maybe the most in the band. They're the big Tommy Shaw contingent. How'd you do on iTunes? Will people come in there and download your songs individually? Have you noticed anything like that?
Oh yeah. iTunes made it so that people could download music legally, and most people want to be honest. And 99 cents, I thought that was a brilliant idea to make it so it's an impulse buy. And so, I'm fine with the way the whole thing is. It's made music more accessible to the masses, and so because you think about it, there have been a lot of albums over the years that really only had one or two great songs on them.
That's true. That's true.
And to be forced to buy, and I think it wasn't necessarily the MP3s that made everything come crashing down. I think that was just that was just the card that pulled out of that you pulled out of the house of cards, because the music industry, I think, did it to itself. It set itself up for this to happen, and so that is the one great thing about the music industry. Is it gets built up, it becomes this crazy, complex thing, and then somebody steps up and plays three chords and changes it all.
Yeah, well, I definitely did love the songs. I mean, my favorite songs off the Cyclorama were Waiting for Our Time, Yes I Can, and Together. I thought Together was just fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you.
That was really a good summertime. And had that been in 1978, it probably would have been a huge selling record. But you just have to change your thinking sometimes, rather than get bogged down and being frustrated that things don't stay the same.
Well, plus most indie bands would kill for 20 to 100,000 record sales. They would
exactly.
They would kill for
and
that.
The thing that's been our salvation has been our fan base. That we can go out and perform. Really, we could play every single night if we wanted to. And so sometimes it feels like that's what we're trying to do. We've scaled our shows back from 130 a year, so now we're trying to keep it between 100 and 120.
Right. Well, on the website StyxWorld.com, I did notice some upcoming tour dates. We're going to be back in a little while, probably on show number 2 with some more with Tommy Shaw. But don't forget to check out One With Everything, the new DVD and CD, TommyShaw.com. And we'll be right back, everybody. And we're back talking with guitar legend Tommy Shaw. Tommy, thanks again for talking with us today, spending a few minutes with us.
You bet.
Styx, first American band to have 4 consecutive triple platinum records back in the late 70s. That must have been an amazing run for you guys. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'll never forget getting that first gold album for the Grand Illusion. We were at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, and we finished the gig, and suddenly all these guys from the record company in L.A. showed up, bringing in these big frames, and they surprised us with our first gold album. And that's the one that sticks in my mind more than anything. And then it just kept coming, and we were making a record, and we would tour. We never stopped, and it was, after a while you get used to it, and you think, well, this is just the way it is, and it was the way it was all the way through 1983. Then after that we stopped for about 13 years, and when we came back, things had changed a lot. The music business had changed a lot, but we were still Styx, and and we still are today. So I guess those early days of all those platinum records, and not just the records, but the friends that we made by going to playing everywhere in America that had electricity. We made an impression on people that still resounds today, and that's why you and I are talking, because the band is still vital, and we still touch those kind of pressure points with our fans.
Yeah, you guys came back at a good time too, because just the convergence and the emergence of things like the internet probably have helped things along a little bit. Plus, all these other things that are going on to this day.
Yeah, and our music, we're lucky that our music has this. It's survived the test of time. We were lucky to have kind of two careers. We had some hit singles, but what really was the lifeblood of the band was, back during those days of those platinum albums, there was AOR music, which was album-oriented rock, and that was what the cool people listened to.
Right.
Because you would have bands like Pink Floyd and Rush and Styx and Journey, and it would be about the entire record. It wasn't about, well, we got this one song, now we need some filler.
Yeah, man. WNEW and PLJ in New York for a time, then 104.3 or 103 point. There was a whole bunch of great AOR rock for a while in New York. Now you can't find anything.
So you would put on the new. Everybody would be waiting for the new record. They would debut the album. They'd put it on side one, cut one, and they would play it top to bottom, and it would have this flow to it. And it was meant to be that way. It was an entire piece of work, and that's how our albums. We still think of albums that way today. The music industry, it's a business, and just like every other business, it's become, it really got killed by all these corporate ideas of it's a product and let's just squeeze everything out of it and get rid of the things that don't mean anything. And they kind of twisted it around so it's only about, for a lot of people, it's just about that big hit single that you could bring in a bunch of, corporate songwriters in to write this one song that's perfect and it meets all the focus. It became all that, which is this horrible thing. But sometimes you can't tell the difference between the processed spread and the one that's made by the little old lady that's got 3 goats.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe the processed one's got a little more salt in it, and it's found this perfect thing. But the love and care that the little lady gave to hers, that's who we were back then. We were the little people who would sit there and craft the whole thing.
Yeah, but also at your height, you guys were probably considered one of the most commercially successful bands, to emerge at that time.
We got labeled as this corporate because of one interview. We got labeled as this first corporate band, which for us was like. We saw that interview and it was like, what? Because we never had a sponsor. We never took took a dime of corporate money. We had a manager who looked at the way he promoted Styx as a business, but that had nothing to do with who we were. So.
Except for the fact that the record label itself is proud to be a corporation.
Yeah, but we were with A&M Records, which was. It was like 2 guys and some goats. It was Herb Alpert, who was a musician, and Jerry Moss, who was a promotion man. And they started that in Jerry's garage, and he used to sell it out of the trunk of his car. So they weren't. It wasn't a big corporation. It was a couple of guys, and so we were the David up against the Goliaths. We went up toe to toe with Columbia Records. With the huge, the ones that had these huge bank rolls and lots of huge artists. We were a smaller label, and we still sold all those records, and that's why it made it so. The victories for us were very sweet.
Right. Well, Tommy, I've always loved your stuff because it just expressed like a positivity or a hopefulness, and even some of the darker stuff. And I don't know if where's that spirit come from in you?
Well, I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, and every Sunday morning you could turn the television on, and it would be, I just remember Gospel Jubilee. There would be this music that was on there, and it was mostly it was vocals, mostly vocal groups. And I remember the Happy Goodman family, and it was like, Jubilee, Jubilee, you're invited to this Gospel Jubilee. And it would be these vocal groups, and they would sing these songs, and they would start out being kind of about, somebody's going through adversity. And then when it got to the chorus, all of a sudden it would go up a notch and this beautiful harmonies, and it would be basically, everything's going to be okay. And I always, I was never tempted to be in a gospel quartet or anything like that, but I always liked the way that felt.
Yeah.
I liked when you get to the chorus, it's like triumphant, and I think that's something that we all agreed on in Styx.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I guess I guess that was definitely like, bred into you. You can't get away from that. I guess that's like, the more positive aspects of religion. If you're not going to say, without getting into the whole religious thing, there are, certain elements of it that can be very practical and positive, and we should stop killing each other.
Exactly, and that's the part that comes off great on television. The music like that, even like Jimmy Swaggart, who's is as a moral leader, he probably had a lot to be left a lot to be desired.
He was knocked down a notch or two.
But did you ever listen to the music on his show? It was killer.
Yeah, I have. I actually have watched some of the Swaggart stuff.
He was like Elvis, and he was the king of Bring It Down. I mean, he was like a soul man, and I would watch him just for the music.
He's working it.
He would be. I don't know how he would make it look like he was jamming with this gigantic chorus, and they'd be following him and riffing on it. But then when he started preaching, they're like, I have to get away from it.
Hey, let me ask you another question. Like you just said, your stuff has stood the test of time, 30-plus years at this point. But looking back, because that's such a definitive thing to do, to make a record and release it and, give it to the public. There's no putting that back in the box once that's out. Looking back, is there anything that you personally, wish that you might not have released or, anything like that? Do you have any, things like that?
Yeah, but I don't want to.
You don't even have to name it. I just, that did. So yeah. So there's a yes, but we might have to dig that one out some other time.
Yeah. Well, hang on. Hold on a second.
Yep. Tommy Shaw, everybody. TommyShaw.com. StyxWorld.com is the website.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
No problem. Tommy's keeping busy. Let me give you my history with Styx. In 1980, I saw the Paradise Theater tour. I was a freshman in high school, and my sister took me, and I was very impressed with the music. The band, at that point, you guys, it almost looked you were doing more of a performance. It looked almost more robotic, and not to make a pun of the Mr. Roboto thing, but then I got to see the band in 2003, and you guys were a lot looser, having a good time, like really being a rock and roll band. But again, like I said, you were the consummate professional. I was very impressed with the way you guys, came out there and commandeered the band and commanded the audience.
Well, thank you. Look, the whole thing is a process. Near the end of like 1997, it was clear that our days were numbered. And it took quite a few leaps of faith to get to where we were in 1999. And Lawrence Gowan was someone that we had met and performed with in Montreal a couple of years, I think. Well, in 1996, he had opened a show for us all by himself on piano, and he was so good. He had the whole audience. He was getting the same kind of response by himself that we were going to get a few minutes later with everything that we had going, and he had his very distinctive voice. And when it came time for us to be looking for a new singer, we had it was funny. We met some singers who sent in tapes and things like that sounded exactly like Dennis DeYoung, to the point where we would put them on and sing along with them and going, this is kind of strange. This is disembodied voice. I don't know what this person looks like, but he sounds exactly. And that wasn't right for us. We didn't want to try and, we didn't want to try and pull that off. So Lawrence's voice, he sounds good in that same range, but he's a very different kind of singer. He's more bluesy, more like a Freddie Mercury kind of a singer. And so we liked the fact that he could sing those songs in the same key and have the essence of it, but still be an individual on his own. And as a performer, he's definitely in his own league, and so that got us off to a great start. And once we played our first show, and the audience embraced him from day one, we knew we were going to be okay.
Yep. And the band is back. StyxWorld.com, TommyShaw.com. Talking to Mr. Shaw today about the new DVD and CD set, One with Everything, out in November 2006, accompanied by the Contemporary Youth Orchestra of Cleveland. A great concert. I've watched it twice already, and I plan to watch it several more times before I talk to Tommy again, maybe. But what else? You got any hobbies? I know you have some dogs. What do you do in your spare time when you're not working up the song stuff?
Well, I don't have that much. This has been sort of my hobby and my life at the same time. I fish every once in a while, but that's not very often. We like to go up to Oregon and go get lost in the wilderness up there.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, how about some show? I know that you and Jack Blades have a record coming out in February of 2007 called Influence. And
Right.
when I was reading some of that information, I found out that you guys share some co-writing credit for other artists. Are there some songs that we might have heard on the radio that you guys have written for some of the other artists?
Well, it's been a while since we wrote. There's a song that's in Armageddon that we wrote with Aerosmith, and we wrote 3 or 4 songs with Aerosmith. We wrote some with Ozzy. We wrote a little bit with Alice Cooper. None of them were huge hit singles, but we wrote some with Vince Neil and that sort of stuff. But it's been a while since we did that.
Right, but the new record's coming out called Influence, and it's a more acoustic thing, and I'm looking forward to it. Are you guys sharing lead vocals on most of the stuff, or is it one, Jack takes one, you take one type of thing?
Well, it's a little bit of both. We'll share. There's songs like a couple of Simon and Garfunkel songs that we do, that are duets through the whole thing. But we managed to make songs that were typically sung by one person. We managed to make them into duets throughout the whole thing.
Cool. Well, that'll be coming out soon in February. Tommy, I have like 2 more pages of questions that I could ask you, but I'm not going to do that to you because
I got to go to the dentist. My wife came in here and said, you're about to run late for the dentist.
All right. Well, let me just ask you 2 questions if I could. I saw that you played with Les Paul in 1996. He's still going today. We just saw him back in the fall. You got to get back to New York and to play with him again. What was that like?
Oh, well, it was to have Les Paul. I know they call him Les Paul Jr., but his son was back there videotaping, and I remember the one particular night. I've jammed with him a few times, but this one night, I didn't have my guitar, so he handed me his older Les Paul, and it had all these knobs and switches and things on it. So I've got a picture of him, Les Paul, handing me his Les Paul guitar and showing me how to, set it up so I can play it right, which was a pretty memorable night for me. But Les always seems to like me. He can be hard on some of the people who come to jam with him.
Oh, that's good.
I've seen him stop in the middle of the song and go, "What are you doing? What was that?" So he'll take people to school. And
sometimes it's like stick when he does that a little bit, but you got to get back here. Les is 91. He's still going strong.
He is something. And I know he probably still does a meet and greet every single night, meets and talks to every single person who wants to stop by and say hi to him.
What was the process recording on the one of the most famous records from the last 10 years, Knocking on Heaven's Door, on the Warren Zevon record, The Wind, knowing the situation? What was that like for you?
It was very inspiring to see a man who was facing death still having it be about music. We were over at Billy Bob Thornton's house, and we were going to record this one song that Billy and somebody else had written. And we were sitting down in the studio, and everybody else was upstairs playing pool, and it was just Warren and me. And Warren was just, he was sitting behind the organ, and he said, the record company was saying, a friend of mine was saying I ought to do Knocking on Heaven's Door. And I was like, wow, I said, are you serious? And he said, do you think everybody would do it? And I said, if you want to do that song, we'll stop it. We'll. So So I went up and told Billy, and he said, Warren wants to do that. I said, Warren wants to do that song. So Billy, he turned into the producer, and we changed the whole thing around, and everybody came down, and we learned it, and we set up instruments all over the studio in every little corner, and we played it live. And I was kind of in a hallway with my 12-string, and everybody was in every little isolated room we could find. And we cut it live. Warren sang it live, and the only overdub was when we all went out and sang the chorus together.
Yeah.
But man, that was one of the most unforgettable nights I ever had.
Right, and that's one of the most haunting tracks on that record, because you know that Warren is dying.
Yeah,
So.
But he faced it with great humor and strength, and and he was an artist to the very end, and just a real inspiration.
Two things, Tommy. We reviewed Styx's 2003 show for Quebec.com, and it remains one of our most popular articles on the website today. Still getting hits every week on that. And come sail the way. Quebec is a UFO-themed website. We're still waiting to climb aboard the starship and head for the skies. How do you really feel about aliens and things of that nature?
Well, one thing I know is that I don't know everything, and it does seem kind of silly to think that out of all those billions and billions of stars, that we're the only ones out here who can talk about it. It would. I'd love to see something like that happen in my lifetime, but when you think about our lifetimes, they're really just a nanosecond.
That's true, but
in the history of the universe.
That's true, but they got to come that way just to get the great music that we make here on Earth.
Hey, you never know. Somebody could be bringing us something and showing us a whole lot more than what we ever figured out.
Well, Tommy, thank you very much for spending some time with us this afternoon. Great talking to you. We hope to see you on the road in 2007.
Okie doke.
Okay, thanks, Tommy.
All right, thanks.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Rockin' Rich Lynch on the Radio Show, part of the SoundPress.net radio network. Remember, if you're a band or artist looking for promotion, or if you'd like to sponsor this show or add this program to your station, please get in touch with us today at SoundPress.net.